Everyone, welcome to the Soca Moms Summit. Today I'm here with Stacey Alfonso-Mills, and we are going to talk about how she wrote her book and how maybe, just maybe, you can write one too by the end of the summer. Thank you for being here, and please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. Hi Eden. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. My name is Stacey Alfonso-Mills, and I am a children's author. And I've written 3 books over the past few years. The Boys of Sinclair Hill, Fun in the Backyard, The Boys of Sinclair Hill, The Princess, the Treasure, and the Blue Dragon, and Manatee Has a Question. And I currently live in Trinidad and Tobago. I was born and bred, spent a few years in the States, but currently live in Trinidad and Tobago at the moment with my family.
That's great. So, when did you first discover your love for writing?
I would say probably in my sort of primary school years, 7, 8 years old. And I think I'd have to credit although I can credit my mom for just allowing me to find little spaces and read and, lots of books on my own and not really bother me too much about it and worry about why I was just reading in a little corner. But I have to credit my teacher, my primary school teacher, Mrs. Redder, for creating an amazing environment where she, in teaching us reading and writing, she also created an environment where we actually loved it. So I think that was when I realized that I actually really enjoyed writing a lot.
After you discovered your love for writing, what was the first story that you wrote or can remember that you wrote?
I can't remember at all what I wrote the very first time. I think I was just always writing like short stories, and they just seemed just really natural to me. I never thought anything of it to try and remember anything. I do remember though that I did try one time a script writing. I tried to write a script when I was probably about 13, and around 14 I started writing a lot of poetry for about 2 years. So I sort of tried my hands at different things, but I didn't really necessarily think about it at the time as anything specific to writing later on. I just really enjoyed it, and it was a great sort of outlet for me personally. So, I don't remember much about what I wrote the very first time. I wish I do now.
Yeah, me neither. What I wrote, I was hoping that you would be better than me.
No.
So, who was your favorite author when you were a kid?
I have to say I didn't have any favorite author, and I think it probably benefited me later on. And maybe that's why I was able to sort of try my hands at lots of different genres of writing. And I think in my time, we just sort of got books as we got books. We didn't have the opportunity to sort of, really hone in on one particular type of book that we liked. I just got books as my mother just provided them to me whenever she could get them. And if I didn't have books, I'd read magazines, whatever was available at the time. I just like reading them. So I didn't focus too much on a particular author per se. And I'm glad I didn't now, so that I actually read anything that I think looks very interesting. I would take a stab at it. I wouldn't ignore it just because I don't think it fits sort of like a favorite author sort of concept. I just read any and everything that I can and try to learn as much as I can from what I'm reading.
Yes, I don't really have a favorite author. I have authors that I have a lot of books from.
Yeah.
But a lot of my books were hand-me-downs from my brother. I got from the library, or just like random stuff that my mom had when she was a kid, or what my aunties got for me when I was a baby. It's just a mix of a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I don't even really like buy books like that. Like, I just have old ones and I get some from the library, or maybe if my friend suggests one, I might buy it, but I don't really like spend money on books.
All right. I think it's more fun that way, isn't it?
Library, so just get them there.
Yes.
Where should kids look for inspirations for their stories?
Well, for me, I think the first place you look at is right around you. Look at yourself, your own in your own environment, your own experiences. Probably the absolute best inspiration for writing anything. Your friends, family, things that happen around you that it sort of impacts you or makes an impression upon you. Then you think if it's something that really sort of interested you, you would think that it would probably interest someone else, and that's where you can start. Of course, there are others who have the most amazing imaginations and can create worlds and characters without having to rely on the immediate surroundings. But I think the best place you can start would be within your own environment, for sure.
That is some great advice. So, when you're writing, what is the most important thing for you to think about?
I think the thing to think about is that your story starts in your head before you even start writing it. So just sort of remember that that's actually the first start of any story. It's what's already in your head. And just think about what is it you'd like to say? What is it that you'd like to communicate when you're writing the story, and write it that way. Your first draft should be exactly what's coming out of your head. And it probably won't be the most grammatical, best format. It probably won't make a whole lot of sense for a book. And that's all right. That's your first draft, is just allowing whatever is in your head to come out and what you want to say. And then you can streamline it into the book format eventually. And that's fine. That takes some time. But what you have in your head and how you'd like to communicate that is definitely the best thing to start with.
Yes, I know I have a lot of like random stories that are in my head.
Yes.
And sometimes I just put it on the paper and it makes zero sense. And I might read it to my mom. She's like, but it made sense to me when I thought about it.
Yes.
Because it was my head. But she's like,
yes, you have to think about it again. It's because like, okay, this is what I'm thinking. Now, how are others going to actually interpret this? So you go from one step to the next, but it's in your head first and foremost.
So if I wanted to start writing a book and finish by August, where should I start?
Finishing by August is quite a feat, I would have to say. I've never even finished a book in 2 months. I think my shortest book probably took me 6 months to finish. And that's from start to finish with getting it into a print format where it's ready to print. But you have to start just by starting the book, writing it, and having your concepts and your ideas in order. Writing it, no matter what you want to do in your timeline, you have to write the book. You have to write whatever it is that you're interested in sharing. So start that. But I would say this: if you're not ready to move on to a finished product, don't rush it. A book can take a long time to write, depending on how confident you are with the information that you have, and it depends on whether or not the information required any sort of research, because research means that you've got to ensure the information is accurate and it's sourced right and that it's credited correctly. So don't rush your book, depending on what your book is. If you can get it done and it's all written and sometimes that happens, you have a book and it flows and everything works so well that it's done in the most amazing amount of time, that's an amazing thing and it's wonderful, and go for it. And if you can and you have illustrations and you can get that done, especially if you're an illustrator, even better, because it would cut down a lot of time with having to find an illustrator and get the right type of illustrator to work on your book. So the first step, if you want to get it done, is just write the book. Just go from there, and you will see if your book is going to be ready to be published by then, to be printed and published, etc. by August. But it'll be a great feat, though.
So a lot of kids have a lot of unfinished stories. What advice would you give to someone who just wants to finish their stories and get them out there?
Well, I have a lot of unfinished stories as well, and I even went back about a month ago and thought, wow, I didn't even think it was that many stories. But it happens. We have ideas and we start them, and then we don't really get the flow to get them finished. Sometimes the inspiration sort of lacks. Sometimes we're not quite sure how we want to direct that particular story. So we put it aside, and that's okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I would just advise people, anybody, especially kids, to just go back to them every so often, and go back to all of the unfinished book. Just go through each one, and sometimes one of them will come to you, and that's the one that suddenly is ready to be finished, that you've got that flow going, and that inspiration as to how you want to direct the end of it, how you wanted to focus that book and finish it, and it comes together very, very quickly all of a sudden. So just go back to all of your books every so often, just flick through them, pick one up that looks interesting, that you think, okay, I think this is how I would like it to finish now, or how I'd like it to continue, and go with it. But don't worry about the fact that you have unfinished books. That's actually really normal to have unfinished books laying around over time. It's I think what a writer does, unfortunately, have a lot of unfinished manuscripts and books all over. It's okay.
So you said that writing a book and finishing it by August would be quite a feat.
Yes.
And as a kid, what kind of help would we need from our parents to get our book published?
Well, as a writer, I would say that the hardest part would have been finding the right illustrator for me. If your book requires illustration, then that means that you've got to find someone else to work with. However, if you are an artist, then, oh, that is such a great thing to be, the writer and the artist. The creativity right there comes together, and you can do both of them together, and it cuts out a lot of time for you. If you need to find an illustrator, however, that's where your parents could probably help, is try sourcing an illustrator for you. One that will illustrate the way that you would like this story to be communicated, because not all illustrators, of course, have the same sort of style that you would like. Some of them have styles that wouldn't quite match the book that you're writing at the time. I used 2 illustrators over time, and because I wanted different types of style for my books, and so I did have to search quite a bit for that. So your parents can help with that a lot as well. They can search for someone, they can help you with your time management. They can actually help, if you're not really somebody who manages your time well, then you can ask them to help you with that, help structure time for you to write, because you've, of course, got other things to do, your schoolwork and other activities. And sometimes you've got to find a little niche in there that helps you to finish what it is you're trying to do. It helps if they can help organize that for you, help you organize a space for you, and to help you when you get this idea and you need to get to it. Sometimes you have an idea right away and you need to get to it, that they can understand that and be supportive of those sort of creative juices and flows that we tend to get sometimes when you've just figured something out, or you just can't come up with a great idea and you have to write it down. They can help to sort of provide that support for you as well.
So what has been your experience as an entrepreneur, and what advice would you give to someone who's thinking of writing a book?
As an entrepreneur, I have a company that I actually manage as well, and I would have to say time management is probably your best friend. You really do, especially with me having a family. And time management it's very difficult, but it's so necessary to structure your time. And time management means that you're constantly having to review that. It's not an easy thing, especially when your children are at school. And my husband and I always say that we always seem to review our time and what we're doing around the same time as the new school year. So it depends on what's going on with them that determines how we're going to structure ourselves to get what we have to get done, and to make sure that we help our children for them to get what they need to get done, and to support them as well. Somewhere in all of that, I have to structure some time to write, and it doesn't always work for me. I do sometimes fall to it that because other things come up and it becomes really a struggle to find time. But you do have to work at finding that balance where you can find a little time to write, or to research. Sometimes it's even just research. Any little thing that helps with getting that book from one point to the next point. And also just support. I mean, my husband supports me a lot, and my children do as well. They are so supportive and encouraging, and anything that I have where a book is concerned, that they're very much involved in and supportive of. So I'm very, very fortunate in that regard. So it's time management and support, I think, are the two most important things.
Yes, that's some great advice. My mom is always telling me, use your planner, make sure you write everything down. Sometimes I forget, because I mean, usually I'm a very organized person. Honestly, that's just me. But sometimes I just do stuff, and then I don't even think about writing it all down and making sure that I log it, track my progress. And I'm just like, I'm gonna get this done, do all this stuff, and then I just get kind of like, whoa, I didn't even, because it's not all planned, you know?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so how do I find an illustrator, and can I draw the pictures myself?
I wish I was an illustrator. Even though I did art at school, I wish I was good enough that I could have illustrated my own books. But I also know my limitations, and that was definitely not one of the things that I was going to be able to do at the level that I wanted it to be done. So I had to source an illustrator. So if you want to find an illustrator, definitely, tap out into, just put a feed out into social media if there are people, especially young people, who are, really artistic and sort of trying to find ways to improve their own work. You can see if their style meets what you're looking for, and try to. But I definitely would say, if you find people, sort of ask them to draw something like a sample for you. Give them an idea of a character and ask them to come up with it for you, so that you can see if their style is what you're looking for. Not everyone's style would be the same and would match what it is you're looking for, and that's okay. And eventually you will find someone. If you can do it yourself, then absolutely, definitely, I would encourage you to do that. But there are a lot of people out there. Once you put those feelers out, you will find people who are interested in working with a book and being an illustrator.
Yes, I know I cannot draw. I'm in the same boat with you. I just write the book or the story or whatever, and then be like, hey, can you draw this for me?
Yeah. I would say, though, that one of the things I've done that helps is, when I'm writing a book, I already know I can already see the illustration that I want on that page. So I communicate all of that to the illustrator. I basically give them a breakdown of what I want on this page, the character I want focused, and what I want the character to be doing on that page, how it really, matches the particular text on that page. And so the illustrator really just has to take all of what I'm saying and produce it in a picture. And if you can do that, it also helps the illustrator understand where you're coming from. So there is, even though you may not be doing the actual illustration and you're relying on someone else, communicating with them as to how you see the picture and what you'd like to see helps the illustrator really pull that out for you and give you what it is what you want to see in your work.
So being a published author sounds like a lot of work. But if it did happen, what would be the benefits for being a published author as a kid?
As a kid, writing children, if you're writing, it helps you with, I would say, everything. Writing is a form of communication. So it helps you with every single thing that you have to do where communication is concerned, whether it's your reading skills, your writing skills, your interpretation skills, your personal communication skills. You tap into a lot of self-expression when you're writing. As a published author, you can see your work. You contribute to a lot of work. You contribute work to a lot of other people, depending on your genre. You actually allow others to see a little bit of you and communicate who you are through your work. So there is that sense of interaction that is direct and indirect in a way, but it does improve who you are as an individual as well. So there are a huge amount of benefits. As a children's author, for me, I get to actually interact with children, and children being, the most amazingly honest, brutally honest human beings. When you're reading a book and they understand, they can tell you that they like your book, means that you've captured exactly what a child is looking looking for, and how it benefits them in so many ways. So there are a huge amount of benefits to being an author, a published author.
So your career as a writer seems like it has been great, and you have made a bunch of books and you're doing really well.
Yes.
But if you could only write one more book before you retire from writing forever, what would it be about?
Wow. I think I would write a book for parents on how to encourage and foster reading and writing at an early age, without it being something that children see as a punishment, but see more as an enjoyment and a form of bonding as well. I think a lot of parents may not be aware of how important early literacy is with their children. I mean, I started reading to my children as soon as they were born, especially my first son. And after him, I started reading to my kids even while I was pregnant with them. I think there's an amazing amount of bonding that you foster with your children, and it becomes easy for them to appreciate reading later on, where you find that with children, if you don't foster that early enough, it's difficult for them to understand the importance of writing and to find it enjoyable as well. So I think that would be my last book, would be to how to help parents, a sort of go-to for parents as to what we can do as parents to foster more early literacy and sort of bonding with and using reading with that as with their children. I think I'd like to do that sometime soon, hopefully.
Yes, that is a really great idea. I know, like me, I love reading from the very beginning. I was reading everything. I was like, I just want to read everything. I would go on my brother's shelves. I would finish everything on my shelf. All the stuff up here, I have read.
Oh, right. And I'm sure you've read it more than once. Yes, definitely.
Yes. But I mean, not everybody is that lucky that they just love reading from the jump.
Right.
So I think that is a great idea for parents to learn how to teach their kids that reading is a good thing and not just like, oh, I have to read now.
Right. Yes. I think we try to sometimes, unfortunately, it becomes almost like a punishment for some children, and it shouldn't be. It should be really normal and really natural. It should be something that if they want to do it, that you should allow them to just do it. This is what they want to do right now, then that's okay. Yes, you also need activities. It's healthy to have activities outside. And I would encourage that. I was extremely active as a child and still active. So all of those things I had to fit in. I had lots of extracurricular activities. So I did have the sort of balance, I think, that allowed reading to just be my thing. And it was easy for me to do. So I'd love for parents to be a little bit more aware of how important it is, early literacy and the bonding with reading.
Yes, so this has been a great session. I hope you guys learned a lot from it. But before we close, can you please tell us where we can find you and how we can support you?
Right now I'm on Facebook at Trinity Kids Books. You can find me there. My website is currently being updated, and I hope to have that done very, very soon. Social media is definitely not my strongest suit, but I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of people around me who are working with me to get that done and get that done quickly. So please definitely, Soca Mom Summit is definitely a great support, and I'm so grateful that I'm part of this amazing platform. So definitely look out for me on Facebook and try to keep, and so you can see the updates that I'm putting on there, and as to where my books are and how you can probably access them.
So thank you for joining us today. This has been amazing. You've given a lot of great advice. So
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Make sure that you guys follow her on social media and follow Soca Mom Summit on social media, and make sure that you don't miss any other videos.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye. Bye, everyone.